Tesla takedowns popped up across the country and here in Western Washington. Linwood, University Village, Soto, South Lake Union, Fife, Bellevue, and beyond.
All the way from Linwood down to Vancouver, Washington. We just rocked it today. It was a great day.
At the U Village protest,
I am so proud to represent you.
Representative Pramila Jayapal was among those to address the demonstrators.
Musk and the Department of Greed and Evil, that's what DOGE is, the Department of Greed and Evil, have got to go.
In Washington state this weekend, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal did turn up at an anti-Elon Musk, anti-Trump Tesla takedown rally in her district in Seattle. There were hundreds of these all over the country this weekend. In the midst of this rising tide of Americans who are angry and fearful about what's happening in Trump's second term in office, Americans increasingly willing to stand up and do something about it, Congresswoman Jayapal has also started hosting events that are designed to teach the strategy and tactics of nonviolent resistance and protest. These movements have sort of taken off on their own. She's getting specific for how to do training, practical training on how these things work, how they stay nonviolent, and how they can be most strategically effective. She's calling them resistance labs. The first one was a week and a half ago. Congresswoman Jayapal told a local.
Last night, we saw breaking news out of the Atlantic, and one of the most devastating and shocking stories I have seen from the Trump administration, that an innocent man, a lawful permanent resident of the United States, was ripped from his home in Maryland and deported to a prison in El Salvador, all while the Trump administration knew that they had screwed up in doing so, that this man was innocent. This father was ripped from his home. One of the most disturbing stories I have ever read. Truly reprehensible, especially as Donald Trump is silent and Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance try to defend this decision. But it is so disgusting that even the biggest MAGA spokespeople are calling it out, and that includes Joe Rogan, who ripped this immoral deportation plan in a clip that we're going to check out. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this article and what Joe Rogan had to say, I want to hear from Cory Booker, who is currently filibustering on the Senate floor and talked about this story right here.
Every day we're hearing new stories of immigrants, some here legally, some awaiting trial, most charged with no crimes, being rounded up, detained, arrested, deported, often just disappeared. This is happening without charges, evidence, trials, hearings, without what the Constitution says, due process. This is what other governments done. We've talked about it in the Foreign Relations Committee. We complain about it to nations across the earth when they do not show due process, where they disappear people. Maybe you're an immigrant that's never broken the law. Maybe you're a citizen. Even if you think the administration's immigration agenda doesn't apply to you, please know that the reckless behavior we're seeing erodes all of our rights. And the American mother and the American child right now, whose husband was unjustly and illegally deported and is right now in an El Salvadorian prison, think about them. Denying due process is a slippery slope. We've seen it in other countries with democratic backsliding. It is a slippery slope. If people can be detained and deported without a hearing, detained and deported without due process, without seeing a judge, nothing will stop from slipping toward deporting others, making mistakes with an American.
This is possibly the worst thing that we have seen out of this Trump administration. It is truly heartbreaking what is happening and how few have stepped up to talk about it. To make the case to the American people that what is happening right now is unthinkable, that this is a fascist dictatorship we are essentially living under, where Donald Trump, without due process, can ship out to the most dangerous prisons in the world anyone who he likes based on how they look in that alone, which is what we saw in this article right here. Trump team admits they deported an innocent man, and they don't care. The Trump administration has admitted that it mistakenly deported a man to a notorious prison in El Salvador. due to an administrative error. Despite the government's repeated insistence, there were no errors in their flight determinations. A sworn statement, filed last Tuesday from a top immigration and customs official, said that the removal of a man from Maryland has been the result of an administrative error in 2019. This man, Abreu Garcia, was arrested, and although he was not charged with anything, he was served a notice to appear at a removal proceedings. At the time, Abreu Garcia was denied bond because a confidential informant advised that he was a member of the MS-13 gang, according to a filing. No actual evidence of Garcia's gang membership was provided, though he was not, as Vice President J.D. Vance suggested on Twitter, a convicted member of MS-13. Garcia then filed an I-589 application for asylum, withholding of removal, and protection under the United States Convention Against Torture. He had come to the U.S. in 2011, fleeing threats of gang violence at the age of 16, according to The Atlantic. Although he was found to be removable, the immigration judge granted him a withholding of removal, a protected legal status meaning he could not be deported to El Salvador, or he would likely become a target for gang violence. This administration is costing innocent people their lives, admitting they're doing so, doing nothing to fix it. It's truly one of the saddest things that I have read out of this Trump administration so far. And like I said, it was even so bad that Joe Rogan called out how disgraceful it was. You
know, but the thing is, like, you got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting, like, lassoed up and deported and sent to, like, El Salvador prisons, like that kind of shit. Because I read some story. Was it Glenn Greenwald?
It was.
Yeah. The gay barber guy.
Yeah.
It's scary, man.
Is that true? Is that story accurate?
I don't think we know.
Can you explain the story for people that don't know?
Well, from what I read, I think it was in Time magazine, Jamie. If you can pull it up, and maybe we can get it accurate. But basically, with a bunch of these Trinidad guys, allegedly they got at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally. He was here legally. That's what they said. Don't know if it's true.
Did he have a green card?
I don't know what the details are. Maybe Jamie can find it.
No criminal record.
From what it said in that story. Now, this is the problem, right? Because the mainstream media has been putting out so much shit that I don't know what to believe anymore, right?
I feel the same way.
And so it's difficult, but it's something that we actually brought up in one of our conversations. We interviewed the guy from the Heritage Foundation. We brought this up because I think we talked about this with Doge as well. When you do things quickly and you do things aggressively, that's how you get shit done. But that's also when mistakes get made.
Right.
And I think a human being being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy. That could be possible. That's horrific, and that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs, and then, like, how long before that guy can get out? Like, can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen.
But
right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole.
I really just don't know what to say. It's just, when you even have the people who will most of the time fall in line with whatever MAGA does or Trump says, drink the Kool-Aid, buy into the lies. J.D. Vance trying to say that this guy was an MS-13 gang member when it's just not true. It's factually inaccurate. When you have a mass deportation plan, so immoral that even your MAGA yards are calling it out. I don't know, maybe you're just awful. This is, I have no words. Last night, I just couldn't sleep because we're at that point. This is not a nightmare scenario. This is just the current state of things. I really don't. I don't know what to say when this administration cannot be held accountable for just picking up whoever they want in deporting them to foreign torture prisons. It is beyond words, and especially as so many Democrats, elected Democrats, are unwilling to touch this issue. I have heard not enough. incredibly grateful that Cory Booker is taking a stand and using this time to call out what's happening, but not enough. Not enough have responded to this out of fear that they'll come off soft on immigration. People are losing their lives. Our worry should not be about how our messaging looks. Let's message what is real, that this is a threat, that this is terrifying, that it could be me or you or anyone you know next because there are no checks anymore. There is no due process. They do not care. All that we have left is our voices, and we got to use them. Rachel Maddow gave me a little bit of hope last night, talking about those protests that are using their voices, and I want to take a look right here.
Tesla takedowns popped up across the country and here in Western Washington. Linwood, University Village, Soto, South Lake Union, Fife, Bellevue, and beyond.
All the way from Linwood down to Vancouver, Washington. We just rocked it today. It was a great day.
At the U Village protest,
I am so proud to represent you.
Representative Pramila Jayapal was among those to address the demonstrators.
Musk and the Department of Greed and Evil, that's what DOGE is, the Department of Greed and Evil, have got to go.
In Washington state this weekend, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal did turn up at an anti-Elon Musk, anti-Trump Tesla takedown rally in her district in Seattle. There were hundreds of these all over the country this weekend. In the midst of this rising tide of Americans who are angry and fearful about what's happening in Trump's second term in office, Americans increasingly willing to stand up and do something about it, Congresswoman Jayapal has also started hosting events that are designed to teach the strategy and tactics of nonviolent resistance and protest. These movements have sort of taken off on their own. She's getting specific for how to do training, practical training on how these things work, how they stay nonviolent, and how they can be most strategically effective. She's calling them resistance labs. The first one was a week and a half ago. Congressman Jayapal told a local radio station, quote, "We thought we'd have a couple hundred people. We had 850 people sign up. We had to stop people from registering because we didn't know if we had room." In the end, a crowd of about 500 people packed the building for that first in-person training. They ended up having to turn people away because they couldn't fit them in.
It appears that the Trump administration is willing to ignore judicial decisions, and so that brings us to you in this room. It brings us to the people. That is really the bulwark, the wall against the crumbling of democracy. There's really no other savior or option than the people.
This weekend, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal decided she would hold a follow-up, a second so-called resistance lab. The Congresswoman says more than 1,500 people took part in the follow-up event this weekend. Not just people who are constituents, not just people from Washington state. She says it was 1,500 people in 31 different states.
I am sure this is not, the way you wanted to start your morning, early afternoon. This is heartbreaking. It was tough to talk about this, but it's just us that much more important to call it out. And I will be insistent that we need to push more elected Democrats to do just that, to use their voices right now. We cannot be quiet on this. We're certainly not going to be here. And if you want to support that, as always, you can subscribe to this channel. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you.